Hey guys, today I'll show you a sci-fi horror TV series named Dark Season 3. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. Previously on Season 2, the future Jonas Adam shoots and kills Martha in the cabin, leaving the young Jonas filled with hatred, or clinging to the hope of reviving his lover, Martha. After Adam leaves, a dark version of Martha appears, pulls out a high-tech compact time machine without uttering a word, and both disappear as time particles materialize. When Jonas comes to, he finds himself transported to the Winden Caves by Martha. He realizes that although the girl in front of him looks like Martha, she is not his beloved. He roars at her like a goose, demanding an explanation. Martha tells Jonas that they belong to different worlds, but these two worlds are intertwined and related. Jonas wanted to ask more, but Martha refused to answer further, merely soothing him using her words but not muscles, saying she would set everything right. With that, she activated the time machine and disappeared. Jonas leaves the Winden Caves, and the outside scenery seems different, shrouded in dense fog. He stumbles home where the dining table in the cabin is laid with food, and a photo of Kathy and her 3 children hangs on the wall. The image of the father in the photo has been torn out. Jonas finds it unbelievable. He runs upstairs to the bedroom and sees a photo of Martha, Bartosz, and another blonde boy. This doesn't seem to be his home. The date in this world is November 4th, 2019. The owners of the cabin are Kathy and her 3 children. In the morning, Martha awakens from a dream, composes herself, and goes downstairs for breakfast. Mikkel plays games in silence, as he has been having the same nightmares recently, so his mood is quite low. Kathy prepares breakfast and calls her eldest son, Magnus, to get up. In fact, Magnus was already awake. His refusal to come downstairs wasn't due to laziness or a hatred for school, but because he was getting intimate with Franziska. On hearing their mother's call, the two had to stop their intimacy. Franziska sneaks out via the water pipe, and Magnus nonchalantly comes downstairs, steals his sister's breakfast, and heads to school. Martha puts on her yellow raincoat, ready to go out. She has drama rehearsal tonight and tells her mother she'll be home late. Kathy reminds her that from tomorrow, the 3 siblings are to eat at their father Nielsen's house. Martha is not pleased about this, as it makes her feel nauseous and uncomfortable. In this world, Nielsen cheated on his wife, and Kathy had divorced him. The 3 children are in Kathy's custody. After the divorce, Nielsen quickly remarried Hannah. Nielsen returns home from his usual morning run, which took longer today. When Hannah asks why, Nielsen excuses himself, saying the queue for breakfast was too long on the school opening day. Hannah is now pregnant with their child. Nielsen prepares to tidy up and go to work. Hannah lovingly tells Nielsen she loves him, but he only replies she's beautiful. It seems that in any world, Nielsen doesn't truly love Hannah and never responds to her confessions. Hannah, tidying up at home, finds a long golden hair on Nielsen's running clothes, which are filled with a strange perfume scent. She suspects that Nielsen and Kathy may be rekindling their old flame, so she goes to the school under the pretext of delivering something for Nielsen to their children and asks Kathy if Nielsen visited the cabin that morning. Kathy despises Hannah, who stole her husband and didn't want to deal with her. But this probing makes Kathy realize something is off. The current Hannah is like her past self. Nielsen must have another woman outside. In the so-called triangle relationship, Kathy shows no concealment of her schadenfreude, telling Hannah that she hasn't seen Nielsen. At the same time, Jonas arrives at the school, thinking that since Martha brought him here, he would find her at school. Sure enough, Martha is in class. Neither the teacher nor the students in the classroom recognize Jonas, who came from a different world. He claims to be a new transfer student and sits at the back of the class, staring at Martha in front. As soon as the bell rings for break, he seizes the opportunity when the other students are leaving to ask Martha why she brought him here. Martha looks baffled. While she feels a sense of familiarity with Jonas, she doesn't recognize him. Jonas is left standing in place, stunned. As he walks out of the classroom, he bumps into Hannah. Unfortunately, in this world, Hannah doesn't yet have a son this old. Jonas learns that the date is November 4th, 2019. Recalling his original world, Mikkel travels back to the past on this day to become Hannah's husband and his own father. He goes to the stage where the drama rehearsal is taking place, attempting to share this information with Martha. However, the moment Martha hears Hannah's name, she explodes because this woman's husband is her own father, Nielsen. Jonas begins to realize that this world seems different from his original world. He tries to find traces of his father's existence in the graveyard, but only finds the tombstone of the restaurant's owner. The pastor in charge of the town's church is Officer Charlotte's husband, Peter. Charlotte and Peter's relationship is cold. Peter's father, Helga, suffers from Alzheimer's disease. He always carries a red thread and a pfennig coin, incessantly mumbling, "Everything will happen again." Sometimes he would clutch the person next to him tightly, saying incomprehensible things like, "The beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning." Just like Jonas's original world, a boy named Eric has gone missing here. Missing person notices for Eric are posted on telephone poles and in the school. Martha's current boyfriend, Killian, is Eric's brother and the unfamiliar blonde boy in the bedroom photo. Nielsen and Charlotte are the police officers responsible for finding Eric. The location where Eric went missing is close to the Winden nuclear power plant. Charlotte goes to the power plant to check the employee shift schedule. The plant director, Alec, who has recently lost his wife, is in a very distressed state. He hands over the shift schedule, but when Charlotte wants to search the Winden caves under the power plant, Alec refuses. He explains that the area has long been sealed off and it's impossible for Eric to wander around inside the plant. However, as Charlotte leaves, Alec instructs Eric's father to promptly transport the nuclear waste hidden in the cave. Returning to the police station, Nielsen calls Charlotte into the archive room. It turns out that his new extramarital affair is with Charlotte. Although the thrill of their affair at the police station is exhilarating, it's not convenient as they might be discovered at any moment. Hence, they use the excuse of attending a parent-teacher conference at the school and drive to a secluded spot for their tryst. In Jonas's original world, he had facilitated Mikkel's time travel. The more he thinks about it, the more he feels it was a mistake. Therefore, after arriving in this world, he believes his mission is to prevent all this. He remembers that today is the day his friends had planned to explore the forest cave, so he rushes to the abandoned railway tracks, intending to stop the older kids from taking Mikkel into the forest. However, things aren't as he expected. Mikkel isn't there and hasn't participated in this adventure at all. The rambling Jonas is sent away by Magnus. He hurries back to the cabin, confirming that Mikkel is indeed home asleep and hasn't gone anywhere. In the forest, Martha and her group arrive at the entrance of the Winden cave. Suddenly, strange noises emanate from within the cave, and their flashlights start to flicker. Everyone gets scared and starts to run. In the chaos, Martha falls to the ground. When she gets up, her friends have disappeared. She hears someone calling her name and turns to see a girl covered in dirt reaching out to her. Moreover, this girl looks exactly like her. She doesn't have time to think and can only turn and run. The lights all over Winden Town begin to flicker, and dead birds start falling from the sky, signifying the ongoing time-space change. Everything seems to foretell something ominous. Martha finally finds her boyfriend Killian, and they hide in the Helge family's ancestral bunker. After a while, their flashlights stop flickering. However, a rift of time particles suddenly appears before them, and the body of a boy is thrown in. The boy's eyes are burnt, his face destroyed, and he's dressed in clothes from the 80s. Everyone is scared and huddles in the corner. Martha steps forward to examine the body. She pulls out a student ID from the boy's pocket. It clearly reads 1973 Mads, who is Nielsen's younger brother who disappeared in his youth. The town returns to calm. A bewildered Jonas steps out of the cabin. An old woman in a black dress is waiting outside. She explains to Jonas that in this world, his father Mikkel never time traveled, so Jonas doesn't exist. The old woman standing before him is the aged Martha of this world. Dark Martha leaves Jonas in this world, and she goes to the 80s in Jonas's world. At the end of the second season, during the apocalypse, adult Jonas, along with Magnus, Franziska, and Bartosz, uses the time machine to travel to the 1980s. After that, the God particle is exhausted, and they are trapped there. They have no choice but to hide in the Tannhaus factory and research how to restart the time machine. Dark Martha finds adult Jonas and says she's here to help him trace the origin. The third season picks up right where the second season left off, but shows a parallel world which is slightly different from the original world, called the main world for convenience. In this parallel world, there is no Jonas. The Dark Martha, who sent Jonas to this parallel world, must have experienced time travel, while the Martha attending school is in an initial state of innocence and ignorance. Hence, Jonas cannot get any information from her. At the end of this episode, the older Martha appears and conveys an important message. This world is destined to fall apart just like his fate over and over again because of him and her. If Jonas triggered everything in the main world, then Martha plays a key role in this parallel world. Even though in the same timeline of 2019, the main world and the parallel one are somewhat familiar, yet slightly different. For example, the illicit love affair between Nielsen and Hannah has now become a relationship between Magnus and Franziska. The scent of another woman on Nielsen has changed from Hannah to Charlotte. The parallel world is closely related to the main world, but with many subtle differences. In the main world, the old Helga has a deformed ear and a scar on his face, while in the parallel world, his ear is intact, but he is blind in one eye. The one-eyed man in the police station in the main world becomes the one-armed man in the parallel world. Peter transitions from a doctor in the main world to a priest in the parallel world. In the main world, Franziska is healthy, but in the parallel world, she becomes deaf-mute, taking the place of her sister. However, she quickly becomes a love interest for Magnus. In the parallel world, Hannah successfully marries and becomes pregnant with Nielsen's baby. But Nielsen has another affair with Charlotte. He really is a philanderer, never satisfied unless he's in an illicit affair. What's more intriguing is that when the Dark Martha is in the main world, the scar on her face is on the left side. However, when she arrives in the parallel world, the scar appears on the right side. It seems that items in the parallel world form a mirror image of the main world, and people like Martha also change like a mirror image when traveling through time and space. Perhaps this could serve as a marker to determine which world she is in. Dark Martha travels to 1888. She finds adult Jonas at the Tannhaus factory, stating that she is not the Martha of this world. A night passes, and adult Jonas looks at the letter handed over by the young Noah before the apocalypse. It's clearly left by Martha. He wants to ask who wrote this letter, but first he lets her meet with Magnus and others. Ever since the apocalypse, Magnus has been thinking about his sister. He is thrilled to see Martha, but this happiness of sibling reunion is soon shattered. She is not the real family of these people here, and her purpose of coming here is to make everything return to its rightful place, so that they can survive in each other's world. Martha shared everything that happened in the parallel world, including their encounter with the end of the world. They originally thought that they could eliminate the apocalypse by operating in a single line, but now a new world line has been added unexpectedly. Magnus and Franziska can't accept this. Adult Jonas, being older than them, quickly asks the key question. Regardless of whether Martha wants to save both worlds or not, what's important is how she pinpointed the time and location, and accurately found adult Jonas and others in 1888. Martha replied that it was Jonas who traveled to the parallel world and revealed the message. Adult Jonas, however, does not believe that it is possible to accurately locate the past time and place. It could only be Adam who has experienced everything. Adult Jonas suspects that Martha is sent by Adam, and the letter that prevented him from killing Adam and brought Magnus and others to hide in 1988 was forged by Adam. Adult Jonas and others arrived in 1888 with the help of a time machine, but the fuel ran out and the machine broke down. They were trapped alive here. The arrival of Martha made adult Jonas realize that she must have something that can travel through time and space in her hands. During the argument and push, the factory owner, the blind old Tannhaus, walked in. He is very interested in time travel. Knowing that adult Jonas and others are time travelers, he offers the venue and parts for free, allowing them to repair the time machine. Adult Jonas gives face to old Tannhaus and does not continue to quarrel. Old Tannhaus also realizes that the arrival of Martha made adult Jonas so anxious. When everyone leaves, old Tannhaus comforts adult Jonas, advising him not to be affected by external things and to stick to his heart to create a new paradise. Bartosz quietly sought out Martha, apologizing on behalf of adult Jonas's rudeness. He even took her on a tour around the organization's headquarters. Old Tannhaus's father dedicated his entire life to building a time machine, hoping to transcend the laws of time and space. That's why he set up the headquarters. Tannhaus is the only remaining old member. Now, the place has been taken over by adult Jonas and others, known as the Sic Mundus organization. When adult Jonas was questioning Martha earlier, he mentioned Adam, the one who had killed Martha in the main world. Bartosz now wants to know exactly who Adam is. Without any hesitation, Martha revealed the truth. Adam is old Jonas from the future. When the main world's doomsday occurred, besides adult Jonas and others who traveled through time and space, Kathy also used the time machine to come to 1987 in search of her young son Mikkel. Due to the kidnapping of Mikkel by Elder Nielsen, the police arranged for Nurse Inez and Mikkel to temporarily leave Winden town. Kathy could only secretly stay in a deserted log cabin waiting for her son to return. She went to school every day with Mikkel's missing person notice, handing out flyers to everyone, hoping to get a hint about her son. Time travel inevitably leads to encounters with one's past self. Young Nielsen and Kathy are still a sweet couple at this time. Young Hannah follows them around every day, trying to break them up. After all this time searching, Kathy found out the reason why Mikkel left Winden. Hannah told her that Mikkel was almost kidnapped by a madman from the sanatorium, which is why the police sent him to a safe house in another town. Kathy didn't care whether young Hannah was genuinely kind-hearted. Even if she was young, she was still the bad woman who messed with her husband and son in the future. So she warned Hannah to stay away from Mikkel. Kathy first sought help from the police, but she couldn't reveal her true identity or provide any identification. No one believed that she was Mikkel's biological mother. Therefore, she had to distribute flyers herself to find traces of Mikkel. Now that she heard about Mikkel nearly being kidnapped and dragged into the Winden cave, she realized that the madman locked up in the sanatorium could very well be Nielsen. Kathy arrived at the sanatorium, and to her surprise, the nurse on duty was her own mother. Around her neck hung a St. Christopher necklace. She had always treated Kathy poorly, constantly expressing disdain for her daughter. Despite that, Kathy was moved to tears upon seeing her mother. The mother felt that the woman in front of her looked familiar. However, when she heard that Kathy was there to visit her husband Nielsen, her feeling of familiarity turned into disgust. At this timeline, Nielsen was already old, while Kathy looked considerably younger. So she thought that Kathy was unable to find a partner and would settle for a madman or a criminal as a husband. She despised her and consequently snubbed Kathy. Regardless, Kathy didn't mind her attitude and eventually persuaded her to allow her into the sanatorium to visit. This couple, transcending time and space, finally got to see each other. Kathy was determined to save her husband. Also in 1987, the case of Mads's disappearance remained unsolved. Nielsen's parents could only establish a memorial for him and held a simple funeral at home. The mother had to face the sorrow of possibly never finding her younger son while dealing with her husband, who was always preoccupied with another woman. Inside the father's bag were all clippings about the disappearance of the middle-aged Claudia. On the night Mads disappeared, his father was having an affair with Claudia. He wasn't concerned about his missing son, but scoured the world when his mistress disappeared, causing immense pain for the mother. The father had nothing to say in his defense. He left the house and continued to stake out the nuclear power plant to find Claudia's whereabouts. The secretary didn't know where her boss had gone. She could only reveal to the man that Claudia had been in a daze before her disappearance and was not focused on her work. This was unlike her usual efficient demeanor. Moreover, she had a new pet dog. On his drive home, Nielsen's father ran into Claudia's daughter, Regina, who was holding the pet dog. With her grandfather dead and her mother missing, Regina had become an orphan with only her mother's pet dog for company. The identity of Regina's biological father has always been a mystery. Nielsen's father suspected it might be him, but Claudia never confirmed it. Regina knew about her mother's affair with the man, but she never mentioned him in front of her. She also refused to believe that she was his child. Therefore, when faced with the man's concern, Regina chose to reject it. The only one who could accompany her during her sadness was the young Alec. Disappointed, Nielsen's father returned home. The wife could no longer tolerate his indecisiveness. She gave him two choices: return to the family or divorce and let each other go. On one hand was his wife, who had lost their younger son Mads. On the other was his lover, whose whereabouts were unknown. In the end, he chose his wife, Nielsen's mother. Claudia was considered missing in 1987 because she was trapped in a 2020 apocalyptic world. She and her daughter Regina survived the catastrophe by hiding in a bunker. Peter, his little deaf-mute daughter Elizabeth, and a young boy named Noah also survived. Claudia settled her daughter in an abandoned police station. They had survived, but Regina was still suffering from cancer. Claudia took two main daily tasks: to look for her daughter's anti-cancer drugs, and to build a character map of Winden Town in the bunker, studying the God particle. She recorded her research and findings on tapes, seeking a way to return to the past and save everyone. However, she didn't know that Nielsen's old father also survived. While she was out, he sadly smothered Regina with a pillow. When Claudia returned to the police station, all she saw was her daughter's cold body. Peter and Elizabeth didn't stay in the abandoned police station but lived in a mobile home. Every day, Peter, using a pass, took Elizabeth to identify bodies in the nuclear power plant. He hoped to find news of Charlotte and his elder daughter Franziska, but was also scared to see their faces among the pile of dead bodies. The people who were near the nuclear waste barrels at the time, the investigator, one-eyed man, and Alec, were all dead. Peter knew that Charlotte was also at the scene. He was afraid that his wife had little chance of being alive, but the absence of a body photograph gave him some relief. Soon after, he and his daughter left the nuclear power plant to search in the cabin. Young Noah had been secretly following them. When Peter went upstairs to look for something, he communicated with Elizabeth using simple sign language and written notes. Although they had survived the crisis in the bunker together, Peter didn't like Noah. Noah didn't care about Peter's attitude because they both had the same goal: to protect Elizabeth. Another day of searching ended with no results. As an adult, Peter could hide his disappointment. Elizabeth was starting to lose hope of finding her mother and sister. She secretly looked at Peter's brown notebook, hoping her father could tell her the truth instead of keeping it hidden. But Peter himself couldn't explain. In this world, all he could do was hold on to hope and keep his mute daughter alive. Charlotte indeed did not die. At the end of the second season, when the God particle formed a space-time wormhole, she encountered her middle-aged daughter Elizabeth. As their finger connected, Charlotte was transported to the future of 2053, ahead of the nuclear power plant disaster. Such a paradoxical relationship made the interaction between Charlotte and Elizabeth somewhat awkward. However, the love flowing between them was ever unchanging. Now, the scene shifts focus from the main world to the parallel world. The old Martha brought Jonas back to their base. On the wall were painted images of Adam and Eve, and on the tiles were inscribed the names of all the significant people from both worlds. These two worlds were connected by a Mobius strip. The old Martha told Jonas that in both worlds, the same person might sometimes make different choices, but no matter what, they would come to the same end. Just like Jonas once thought that if he didn't exist, everyone else could survive. However, the apocalypse of the main world happened on June 27, 2020, and the parallel world, which didn't have Jonas, would also face an apocalypse, only this time was on November 7, 2019, just 3 days later. The main world then faced the apocalypse. It was revealed from the outside world that when the apocalypse occurred, the world stood still for a moment, and the town of Winden was at the center of the disaster. Now, almost everyone from the main world was trapped in some time and space, unable to freely traverse. Regina had a narrow escape from death, only to be killed by Nielsen's father. The only one who could possibly manipulate Nielsen's father was Claudia. However, it definitely wasn't the one who diligently sought medicine and studied the God particle every day. Could it be Claudia from the future, who upon realizing the true way to save her daughter had her killed instead? However, this approach of killing first to save later seems like the theory of Adam killing Martha. In this episode, the mysterious hair-lip man at his 3 age stages is once again in action. They sneak into the office of the power plant director. After being discovered by the secretary, the middle-aged hair-lip man didn't hesitate to kill her with a wire. This is the second time hair-lip man has dealt with matters related to the nuclear power plant. The first time was to ask Bernd, the plant founder, for the master key to the nuclear power plant. Now, they are going through the documents in the director's office. The scene shifts to the base where the old Martha from the parallel world resides is very similar to Adam's Sic Mundus headquarters. The paintings of Adam and Eve hanging on the wall correspond to the two worlds. In the main world, the old Jonas claims to be Adam. Thus, in the parallel world, the old Martha must consider herself as Eve. The two worlds are connected by a Mobius strip. Therefore, this Mobius strip in the series can also be seen as an infinite connection, a cycle. Simply put, it signifies the close relationship between the two worlds, constantly corresponding to each other in a cycle. If the main world and the parallel world are closely related, and Adam wants to destroy the main world to create a new paradise, then what would Eve's goal be? On a rainy night carriage ride, young Tannhaus quietly listens to his father reading from a book. His mother passed away early, and his father misses her constantly, keeping her pocket watch with him at all times. Young Tannhaus doesn't understand why people die, but his father has a unique perspective on death. He believes that the dead never truly die. They may not be here now, but everything that once lived will live forever in the eternity of time. With this belief, his father spent his life researching methods to transcend time, hoping to resurrect his wife. He believed that if he could travel through time and save her before her death, he could change things. Old Tannhaus inherited his father's will to research time travel. Fortunately, in his later years, he truly met a time traveler and even wanted to reveal the existence of the time traveler to the public. However, in modern Winden, no one had ever heard of the time traveler, which proved that old Tannhaus's actions were obstructed. The person who protected the secret of the time traveler and killed old Tannhaus was the mysterious hair-lip man. Jonas and his group had no idea that while they were earnestly studying how to travel back in time, old Tannhaus had already been executed. When they learned that Adam killed Martha, combined with the fact that the time travel experiments have been continually unsuccessful, Bartos confronts Jonas angrily, feeling that he is hiding the truth for his own purposes. Jonas never wanted to admit that he was Adam, and did not believe he would have killed Martha himself. However, Bartos exposed the truth in front of everyone, leaving Magnus and Franziska at a loss. Only the Dark Martha watched him indifferently. A discord arose among friends, and it was clear that she was the one stirring things up. Jonas doesn't trust Martha in front of him. However, she offers to provide something in exchange for his trust. When she arrived in 1888, she hit a small time travel sphere in the forest. She takes out a ball that serves as the energy source to start the machine. It contains a small amount of God particles. Martha states that this is the last of her energy and the only way for her to return to her world. But to help Jonas fix the time machine, she is willing to risk being trapped in this era and hand it over for free in exchange for Jonas's trust. Under the watchful eyes of his companions, Jonas places the God particle ball into the stone bowl at the center of the electric machine. Then he turns the switch, and 3 streams of electricity pierce the ball. The God particle wriggles and rises into mid-air, beginning to form a circular shape. However, it soon falls back into the stone bowl, indicating another failed experiment. While everyone's attention is attracted by the God particle, Martha quickly escapes back to her room and pulls out a small box from her pocket, which hides many God particle balls. Her previous words were all to deceive Jonas. Before everyone catches her, Martha activates the time travel sphere and leaves this era. Martha travels to the main world on September 23, 2053, and the person who greets her is none other than Adam. It turns out that Martha was sent by Adam to give Jonas that God particle ball in the past. The young Adam was able to research the traversable God particle with this ball, and what he is doing now is nothing more than following the course of history. He believes that Jonas will ultimately become him. The scene shifts back to the parallel world. Suddenly, a corpse falls out from within a bunker. The children quickly reported it to the police. Although the identity card showed that he was Mads, who disappeared 33 years ago, his brother Nielsen didn't dare to believe it. He suspected that the real murderer killed Mads years ago, kept his clothes and identity card, and then committed the crime again 33 years later, disguising the corpse in Mads' likeness to mislead the police. The reason Nielsen became a cop was the disappearance of his brother all those years ago. The police were never able to catch the criminal, and he always thought that the investigating officer, Egon, was incompetent. Egon was a failed husband who only knew how to drown his sorrows in alcohol and was no better than Nielsen, who cheated in his marriage, divorced and married his mistress, only to cheat again after remarriage. Now, Nielsen is determined to change, starting with solving the case. His first stop was the cabin where the corpse was found by his son Magnus and daughter Martha. Nielsen believed that they had nothing to do with the murder, but the sudden appearance of the corpse made him confused and suspected that they were hiding something. This suspicion angered his children. They called their adulterous father a lousy dad. Martha gave Nielsen a detailed account of how they found the corpse. Magnus, however, was less patient. He told his shitty father to get lost. They didn't need a father who randomly suspected his children. Even though Martha knew she was telling the truth, the whole thing was too bizarre. Plus, seeing a girl in the forest who looked just like her made her secretly question whether her boyfriend Killian had slipped her some hallucinating pills. After all, Killian was a small-time thug with a past of dealing those pills. Magnus was more resolute than his sister. To get confirmation from Killian, Martha left home. While Nielsen was out investigating, Hannah brought some snacks to the police station. Since Kathy didn't rekindle her relationship with Nielsen, she suspected one of his colleagues of being the other woman. Seizing the opportunity to hug her, Hannah smelled the same perfume on Charlotte that she had smelled on her husband's jogging clothes. She was certain that Charlotte was the woman she had to deal with. Hannah looked at a photo of her and Nielsen and made up her mind. She went to the power plant director Alec with an old red, white, and blue plastic bag. Just like in the main world, when Alec changed his identity and moved to Town years ago, Hannah found the handgun and identity card he had hidden. She kept these items, thinking they might come in handy one day. Now the opportunity has come. Using Alec's past crimes of murder and identity theft as leverage, Hannah blackmailed him into doing something to ruin Charlotte's reputation and make her lose everything. It seems that no matter what world Hannah is in, she remains as ruthlessly cruel as ever. Charlotte had no idea that she was in the crosshairs of Hannah. She was diligently investigating the bunker where the corpse was discovered. The scene was devoid of any bloodstains, with only chalk-marked outlines of the body on the ground. After a careful search, she discovered a penny coin on a red string deep in the seats of the bunker. Her father-in-law, Helga, had something similar. Instead of reporting to the police immediately, Charlotte went to the church where her husband worked. Peter was in an intimate conversation with a familiar man who turned out to be the cross-dresser. In this parallel world, the cross-dresser was dressed completely as a man. He seemed to have developed a relationship with Peter. Charlotte, aware of her husband's situation, didn't want to dig deeper. She directly asked about Helga's whereabouts when the body was discovered last night and when Mads disappeared in 1986. Peter guessed his wife suspected Helga, but even when Charlotte showed him the penny coin necklace, he refused to believe that his father was the murderer in both cases. He couldn't remember the events of 1986, but he was sure that he and Franziska were with Helga all night yesterday, leaving no time for Helga to commit a crime. Just as Peter was reassuring his wife, he received a call from the police station. Helga had turned himself in, confessing to being the killer of Mads. The couple rushed to the station. Helga was stuck in the vortex of dementia, muttering over and over again that he killed Mads. Nielsen rushed over upon hearing the news, grabbing the murderer in front of him. When Helga saw Nielsen, he was surprised and blurted out that he was not dead. He then pulled out his penny coin necklace. Charlotte was stunned. Helga's necklace wasn't lost. Then whose necklace was she holding? While the adults in the parallel world were solving the case, Jonas was accepting Eve's worldview. In this world, everyone believes they are independent entities and selves. But in Eve's eyes, everyone is just a small part of an infinite world. The old Martha, who compares herself to Eve, believes that Jonas is Adam, but they correspond to different worlds. Jonas was brought to the parallel world for a simple reason. Eve believed he could save everyone in both the main and parallel worlds. Whether it's young Jonas, adult Jonas, or Adam, they all couldn't let go of the Martha who died in the main world. An invisible bond bound them together. Adam once tried to cut this bond, but it was nearly impossible. Even if he shot Martha, what he wanted to do might have been to save her. As Eve spoke, she pulled out a St. Christopher necklace, saying it was what Jonas had given her. But Jonas hadn't given out this necklace yet. Eve said both of them are destined to be entwined with each other forever, stuck in this never-ending cycle. Adam had once spouted similar lines to Jonas, and now it was Eve's turn. She hoped that Jonas would guide the young Martha to grow into her current self. Jonas was still young, no match for the cunning and experienced Adam and Eve. Even if he hated being led by them and blinded, he couldn't see through their schemes. Adam and Eve could simply control Jonas because he wanted Martha from the main world to live. Eve then stated that the former Adam guided him to correct the past, which resulted in him becoming the cause of Mikkel's suicide. She told Jonas that as long as he guided Martha in the parallel world, saw how everything was connected, and grew into Eve, he could save Martha in the main world. Jonas took the square lantern that Eve handed him, deciding to follow her instructions. He left Eve alone, deeply engrossed in the wall fresco of Adam and Eve. Not long after Jonas left, Hairlip Man arrived at Eve's base. They had killed old Tannhaus in the main world, obtaining a copy of Ariadne and a pocket watch. They killed Alec and his secretary, securing 2 universal keys to the Winden nuclear power plant and the design of the traffic control system. Hairlip Man then handed all these items over to Eve. It seems that the man followed the order of Eve. Before, they had overheard the conversation between Eve and Jonas. They didn't understand why Eve couldn't reveal the truth to Jonas, but instead led him down a path of no return. Of course, Eve had her reasons. She knew Jonas would always try to save Martha from the main world. However, in Eve's view, the Martha from the main world must die to ensure the connection between the two worlds, ensuring everyone else could survive. Jonas was somewhat skeptical of Eve's words, but there were no other guides at the moment. He could only follow what Eve had told him to do. So he followed Martha secretly and saw her confronting her boyfriend, Killian. Nielsen, using his authority, called the school, expressing his suspicions that Killian had drugged his daughter, which led to the sudden appearance of a corpse. Because Killian had a criminal record, he was sent home and banned from school. Martha wasn't truly in love with Killian, but rather she was using him out of spite. More because her father had an extramarital affair and divorced, she wanted to date a delinquent to make her parents angry. Now, Martha even came to ask if he had drugged her. Killian felt used. In his anger, he broke up with Martha. On her way home, Jonas stopped Martha. He detailed the past he had with the other Martha from the main world. Martha from the parallel world had experienced many of the same things, but she had no Jonas by her side. However, the Jonas in front of her made her feel familiar and close, making her want to believe and understand him. Jonas briefly explained time travel, the past, and the future. Martha listened patiently. Now, all she wanted to know was who this boy in front of her was. Jonas stated that he would take her to see how everything was connected, so Martha followed him into the Winden cave, crawling through a narrow entrance guided by the light. There was an iron door there, inscribed with the words, "Let there be light." Passing through this iron door and out of the Winden cave, what appeared in front of them was a desolate desert. The forest and the town no longer existed. This was the time that Eve had asked Jonas to lead Martha to. Everything would be explained by someone, and the woman who greeted them was indeed the middle-aged Martha from the parallel world. It turns out, old Tannhaus and his father were among the earliest members of the Sic Mundus organization, spending their whole lives in pursuit of a method to traverse time and space. Their rings were engraved with the Celtic Trinity symbol, and their scepter bore the organization's motto. Thus, the world was created. Despite their relentless pursuit, they never succeeded in time travel. Old Tannhaus was even killed for it. The storybook Tannhaus's father read to his son was Ariadne. Martha from both worlds had rehearsed this play. The red thread in the story symbolizes the guiding red rope in the Winden cave, and Princess Ariadne's tragedy seems to foreshadow an ominous fate. The two worlds are interconnected and bound together. Adam from the main world and Eve from the parallel world both aim to ensure their younger selves would grow into their older selves, so their wishes could come true. Adam claimed that he wished to create a paradise without time, where there would be no pain or sadness. In contrast, Eve didn't want to sever the connection between the two worlds. She wanted to ensure the two worlds remained connected. The scene shifts to Hannah time-traveling to 1954 and determinedly leaving her husband, lover, and son behind to start a new life under the name Kathy. There, the first thing Hannah did was to hook up with Officer Egon, the father of Claudia. Using work as an excuse, Officer Egon left early and returned late every day to have an affair with Hannah. He was reluctant to give up his normal family, but also wanted to find passion from his mistress. Unaware of the consequences, Officer Egon gave Hannah a necklace of St. Christopher. For a moment, she truly fell in love with the man before her, inviting him to continue their affair that evening. He refused as he had to return home to his wife and daughter. However, before leaving, he noticed Hannah's poor complexion and urged her to see a doctor. Egon arrived at the police station for work, feeling quite satisfied. As soon as he entered the office, he saw his wife and immediately felt guilty. Fortunately, his wife didn't seem too bothered about it. Her main concern was to inquire about the whereabouts of Agnes. Agnes is Noah's younger sister. Noah's real name is Hanno, and Agnes, along with Nielsen's young father, rented a room from the Egon family. She and Egon's wife developed an intimacy. Agnes is also a time traveler who has oscillated between the camps of the old Claudia and Adam. Under the guidance of Claudia, Agnes led Noah to kill the old Claudia, thus earning the opportunity to return to the Sic Mundus organization. She even personally killed her brother. After returning to Adam's camp, Agnes never returned, leaving Nielsen's father at Egon's house. Everyone assumed she had disappeared, and Egon's wife was particularly concerned about this. She came to the police station this morning to provide clues regarding the disappearance case. Agnes had once mentioned that her husband was a clergyman. Egon's wife found a handkerchief embroidered with the initials of Hanno in Agnes's clothes. With Father Noah also missing at the same time, she suspected that Noah had kidnapped Agnes. Egon had a vague feeling that Agnes and his wife had an unusual relationship, so he wasn't particularly concerned about the disappearance case, which annoyed his wife. Just after she left in a huff, the wife of nuclear plant founder Bernd came to see Officer Egon. Father Noah had consoled her disfigured son, Helga, and had guided her inner calm. Bernd's wife believed that Noah was a messenger of God and hoped Officer Egon could find him. With the disappearance of his mother, Agnes, Nielsen's father's life didn't seem to be greatly affected. As he was walking alone through the Winden forest on his way to school, he ran into the middle-aged Hairlip Man. Hairlip Man knew Agnes, and he was the one who named Nielsen's father. Hairlip Man handed a snake-shaped bracelet to him, saying it belonged to Agnes. The young Claudia and Nurse Inez were engrossed in a magazine discussing males and females. They even mentioned having seen Nielsen's dad's prized possession. Nielsen's mom felt a strong attraction to Nielsen's dad and was both intrigued and embarrassed by the conversation, eventually leaving on her own. By chance, she ran into Nielsen's dad sitting by the river. Nielsen's dad had an inkling that Hairlip Man might be his father. His emotions were not as calm as he seemed on the surface. Holding the snake-shaped bracelet in his hand, he just wanted to gaze at the tranquil lake surface and relax. Nielsen's mom didn't say much. She just sat quietly next to him. As for Egon's wife, after leaving the police station, she went to the town church, hoping to find some traces left by Father Noah. However, she encountered Hairlip Man. He mistook her for the new priest and vaguely described Agnes's disappearance, hoping for some assistance. Hairlip Man immediately saw that the woman liked Agnes and pointed out the fact that Officer Egon was having an extramarital affair, continuously guiding Egon's wife to confront her inner feelings. Egon's wife was somewhat scared and left the church. While she was grappling with her emotional turmoil, Officer Egon was also facing a crisis of infidelity. Hannah went to see the doctor as she was advised and found out that she was pregnant. She came to the office to tell Egon the news. Egon was thrown into a panic, blurting out doubts that the child was his own. Hannah was clearly upset. His evasiveness overlapped with the image of Nielsen at this time. It seemed that Hannah was always being let down by men. Compared to Egon's indecisiveness, Hannah was much more resolute. She assured him that she wouldn't keep the child and disrupt his family. However, she also decided to end her relationship with him because she finally understood the reason for her unhappiness. Officer Egon felt sorry for Hannah, but wouldn't give up his family because of this. All he could do was recommend a reliable and discreet abortion doctor for Hannah and leave her some money. Hannah, following the address, found the abortion clinic. Before her, there was another girl waiting for her operation, Kathy's young mother. Despite her tender age, the girl harbored dark thoughts. She was convinced that the child she was about to lose would descend into hell. The mature Hannah, however, was much calmer. To her, life on Earth could be far more terrifying than hell. Hannah's nonchalance attracted Kathy's mother. She complimented Hannah, saying that her fake name, Kathy, was beautiful. She was also drawn to the St. Christopher necklace around Hannah's neck. Soon the girl was called in for her operation. However, Hannah hesitated. She couldn't rely on the men she'd been involved with, but perhaps she could raise the baby on her own. So Hannah left her St. Christopher necklace for Kathy's mother and left the abortion clinic, deciding also to leave the Winden town. On the other side, young Claudia might not have noticed her parents' abnormality, or perhaps she did notice but chose not to intervene. From a young age, she was a clever girl, even acting as a tutor for the academically challenged Helga. After school, she visited Helga's home just in time to hear the plant founder, Bernd, expressing his anger over the phone. The construction of the nuclear power plant was not going smoothly. The coal factory kept trying to thwart it, and government approval was always pending. After hanging up the phone and seeing Claudia, Bernd reined in his temper. He never took out his anger on a child. Bernd was grateful to Claudia for tutoring Helga and even paid her extra. Although Claudia wanted to save more money, she was hesitant to accept, feeling like she was taking advantage. However, Bernd taught her a lesson, asking her to take it if she really wanted something. Luck never happened out of the blue. These words deeply imprinted on Claudia, becoming her standard for future actions. On her way home after tutoring, Claudia ran into Nielsen's mom, who was accompanying Nielsen's dad. The woman had been quietly accompanying the man for a long time, and he was willing to share his thoughts. He grew up in an orphanage, was abused, and only recently did his mother bring him to Winden. The appearance of a man who might be his father and his mother's disappearance did not stir his emotions. Sometimes he even felt that he would be better off if his parents never showed up. Hairlip Man gave him Agnes's bracelet, but Nielsen's dad felt it had no meaning and gave it to Nielsen's mom. Claudia didn't like the atmosphere between Nielsen's future dad and mom. Claudia held hands with the boy, subtly asserting her authority, and led him home. The girl could only watch as they walked away intimately. After settling matters with Hannah, Officer Egon finally felt a sense of debt to his wife. He bought a bouquet of flowers and prepared to give them to her when he got home. However, the wife was moved by Hairlip Man's words. She had fallen in love with Agnes. Her husband had another woman, and she felt too ashamed to admit she had been maintaining the facade of their marriage. Perhaps Agnes's departure was a punishment for her, so she decided to propose a divorce to Egon. Claudia and Nielsen's dad returned home to find her father Egon drowning his sorrows in alcohol. His lover had left him, and his wife wanted a divorce. Perhaps this was a foreshadowing of his future as a drunkard cop, Sheriff Egon. Now, his wife looked at the dress Agnes left in the closet and couldn't help but cry. Claudia secretly went into Nielsen's dad's room. She had seen the boy naked before, and now it was her turn to give him a lesson in anatomy. Many people's fates changed that night, including Bernd. Late at night at his own front door, he found a document from the authority. Inside was a signed permit, meaning that the construction of the nuclear power plant could begin. However, he didn't know that this permit was only approved after Hairlip Man threatened the head of the authority with a gun. The development of this world seemed to be pushed forward by an invisible hand. The scene then shifts to the parallel world. Jonas brought Martha to the future, where they met the middle-aged Martha hiding in a bunker. The names of many of Martha's family and friends had been crossed out on people's portraits of the two worlds. The parallel world would face the end of the world in 2 days, and those whose names were crossed out would die in this disaster. The triggering of this apocalypse, just like in the main world, was related to the waste barrels in the nuclear power plant. The middle-aged Martha pinned her hopes on Jonas and Martha to prevent the waste barrel from opening, and thus prevent the apocalypse. Eve had previously told Jonas that she had a way to save the main world's Martha, but the middle-aged Martha stated that Eve had lied to Jonas. There was no way to save both worlds simultaneously. The main world was already doomed. If everyone was to survive, then the Martha from the main world must die. After all, Adam's crazy actions had already proven that the main world could not be saved. It would be better to save some energy and focus on the parallel world, which could still be saved. Young Martha was overwhelmed by the deluge of information and could barely process it all. She left the stifling bunker, unable to deal with it, just before Jonas could go after her to comfort her. Meanwhile, mid-aged Martha kept insisting that he and Martha could possibly be together in this world, but not necessarily just in the main world. Jonas caught up with Martha from the parallel world, empathizing with her current feelings. It reminded him of the time when he first discovered the shocking truth about crossing over from the main world, leaving his mindset shattered. After venting her feelings, Martha calmed down. If mid-aged Martha hadn't lied, then they needed to find a way to save their loved ones and friends. Jonas believed that the Dark Martha, who brought him to the parallel world, was striving towards this goal. Finally, Martha took one last look at the desolate future and followed Jonas into the Winden Cave, returning to her own time and space. Meanwhile, mid-aged Martha linked their names together on the bunker wall. The experiences of this day were too bizarre. Even though they knew they didn't belong to the same world, the connection between the two worlds made Jonas and Martha feel both familiar and strange. After the shock to their belief, they could help but fall into an intimacy. However, at that time, Hairlip Man returned to Eve's base and opened the brown notebook. He solemnly wrote down a phrase: "The beginning is the end, and the end is the beginning." Whether it's the missing Agnes or Dark Martha, they now both stand on Adam's side. Adam believes he has found the origin of the two worlds, and to truly sever the connection between the two, he must carefully plan every step to destroy the origin. Agnes didn't stay with Adam for long. She embraced Scarred Woman, put on a protective suit with a determined look, and walked into the God Particle sphere, apparently heading to a certain point in time. After seeing Agnes off, Adam looked at the pictures of the 3 age stages of Hairlip Man and hid them in his brown notebook. He called over Dark Martha, who helped Adam in his mission to find the origin of the two worlds and a way to destroy it, believing that this could save all the people in the parallel world. It took Adam over 66 years to unravel the source, and now he was willing to share his findings with Martha. He opened the brown notebook and handed it to her. It turns out Eve paired the main world's Jonas and parallel world's Martha with a single purpose: to create the origin. Adam said what she carried within her was the bridge that connected the two worlds. This was the beginning of the knot, and it would also be its end. Her son was the origin. Hairlip Man stood between the portraits of Adam and Eve. He is actually the child of the two from both worlds. According to this logic, Hairlip Man and Agnes gave birth to Nielsen's dad, who, together with Nielsen's mom, had Nielsen and Mads. Mads died in the research of time travel. Nielsen married Kathy and gave birth to Magnus, Martha, and Mikkel. Mikkel from the main world crossed over and married Hannah, giving birth to Jonas. Jonas from the main world and Martha from the parallel world came together to give birth to Hairlip Man, the origin of the world, creating a continuous cycle. It appeared that Hairlip Man indeed connected the two worlds. He was now following Eve's instructions step by step, influencing the direction of the main world, promoting the construction of the nuclear power plant, awakening Egon's wife from his marriage with Officer Egon, and allowing Officer Egon to smoothly transition into the alcoholic Sheriff Egon. It seems like Eve's doing this was to allow the main world to collapse in accordance with its development, thereby preserving the parallel world. Adam had already discovered the two worlds' origin, growing inside Martha's womb. The young Jonas and Martha had become pawns in the grand scheme of Eve and Adam, their younger selves being calculated in their game. Regardless of how the main world and the parallel world intertwine, to the oblivious, they are just living their lives as they wish. Little do they realize that their seemingly insignificant daily actions can have considerable impacts on the past and even the future. In 1987, Kathy learned that Nurse Inez would bring Mikkel back to the cabin today. She had figured out her mother's work schedule at the sanatorium and decided to act tonight, aiming to snatch the sanatorium keycard her mother carried. Her mission was to rescue her husband, Nielsen, and find her son, Mikkel, so the three of them could return home. The old Nielsen had somewhat resigned to his fate, but he did not stop his wife's plan. He felt sorry for Kathy because many of their problems were his fault. In the end, it was his wife who stepped up to fix the mess, risking everything. The couple shared a silent moment. After her mother returned from work, Kathy followed her home. She summoned her courage to demand the key card. Her mother, however, blocked Kathy. When Kathy blurted out "Mom," it scared her mother, who turned and ran away from this stranger. The two women ended up by the river, where Kathy knocked her mother unconscious and searched her bag for the key card. However, her mother was not unconscious and picked up a nearby stone to strike Kathy's head, saying that she was not her mother. She was aborted by her and thus came from hell. In the chaos, Kathy pulled off her mother's St. Christopher necklace and lost consciousness. After killing Kathy, her mother filled her bag with stones and dragged her into the river, sinking her into the depths. She then hurried home to clean the bloodstains. Young Kathy asked her mother about the situation, but when her mother saw the kiss mark left by Nielsen on her daughter's neck, she beat her, saying she should have aborted her too. As shown earlier, Kathy's young mother had an abortion before. She believed that child was destined for hell. When the adult Kathy, who felt eerily familiar, called her mom, she thought it was the aborted child seeking revenge, so she ruthlessly killed Kathy, the demon from hell. The St. Christopher necklace was left to Kathy's mother by Hannah. Hannah, who casually left her child behind, became an idol to Kathy's mother, and she carried the necklace with her, even naming her next child after the fake name that Hannah gave, Kathy. She hoped her daughter would grow to be independent and carefree like Hannah. The wheels of fate crushed Kathy and her mother. The Hannah that Kathy's mother idolized was the cause of her daughter Kathy's tragic fate. Yet she killed her only child from the future with her own hands. Now that St. Christopher necklace is left in the muddy sand by the river, to be found by Jonas 33 years later and given to Martha, becoming a token of their love. Whether it's Mikkel, who returned to the cabin with Nurse Inez, or Nielsen, who lived in the sanatorium, they can no longer wait for Kathy due to her death. They can only follow the course of time, walking towards their predetermined destinies of death. On the same day Kathy was murdered, teenage Charlotte learned from her maternal grandfather that she was not the clockmaker's biological granddaughter. She had been brought to him as a child by two middle-aged women, along with a golden pocket watch. That very night, the clockmaker received the devastating news of his son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter's deaths in a car accident. From then on, Charlotte became the clockmaker's solace in his grief. However, even he did not know the true origins of Charlotte. Upon learning her true origins, Charlotte was unable to accept the truth and ran out. She was torn between running away from home or not when she coincidentally met teenage Peter, who had come to seek refuge with his father, Helga, following the death of his mother. They were two disheartened children who found solace in each other's company. Sharing their stories helped them unburden their hearts. Charlotte ceased to struggle with the fact of her adoption, and Peter accepted the future of reuniting with his estranged father. They both returned to their respective families and stayed in the small town of Winden until the end of the world occurred. Charlotte was then transported to 2053 to reunite with her middle-aged daughter, Elizabeth. The desolation of the apocalypse shook Charlotte's heart. She then joined Adam's ranks and was determined to help him sever the connection between the two worlds. In front of the oscillating God particle, Elizabeth and her old sister Francisca embraced and bid farewell. Old Francisca watched as her mother and sister put on protective clothing and stepped into the stable God particle sphere to fulfill their duty. The young Elizabeth of 2020 was unaware of the future. She just followed her father Peter to the nuclear power plant every day, searching for traces of her mother and sister. The continuous disappointments finally came to a head when she refused to continue identifying bodies. She had an argument with her father and walked back to their caravan alone. As soon as she entered, she found a man stealing their supplies. Elizabeth didn't have time to flee before the man knocked her out. When she woke up, she found herself bound hand and foot. The man was eating the food reserves she and her father had saved, and after eating his fill, he developed a malicious intent towards her. But luckily, Peter came back. He immediately engaged the man, but being frail, he wasn't a match for him. Elizabeth managed to cut her bonds with a knife and attacked the man with a fire extinguisher. She repeatedly struck the man's head until he was motionless. When she finally came back to her senses and looked for Peter, she found that her father had been killed by the man. With her last family member killed, Elizabeth sat numbly on the ground until nightfall. That's when the young Noah found her. Now was the time for Noah to fulfill his promise. He would take care of Elizabeth in Peter's stead. On the other side, the middle-aged Claudia discovered Regina's corpse. She didn't know who had killed her daughter and could only bury her with sorrow. Upon returning to the police station, she found Claudia from the parallel world waiting for her. The parallel world's Claudia belonged to Eve's faction. She came to persuade the main world's Claudia to grow into the old Claudia, to challenge Adam and prevent him from destroying the connection between the two worlds. Thanks to the explanation provided by the parallel Claudia, we can roughly understand the formation of the time-traveling portal. According to the data from Eve's side, the portal was first opened in the summer of 1986. In 2019, adult Jonas closed the portal, but in 2020, he reopened it. Each time the portal is opened or closed, radioactive elements are left behind in the portal. Because of the half-life, every time there's movement, the element cesium is taken back to the portal before it completely decays. Therefore, it expands exponentially, and the portal will exist forever. This is the necessary condition for time travel to keep happening in cycles. That means a large amount of God particle cesium created the time portal. The parallel Claudia hopes that the main world's Claudia will guide Jonas to become Adam, ensuring that everything proceeds without any changes, thereby preserving the connection between the two worlds. What the main world's Claudia needs to do in this process is all recorded in the brown notebook. The parallel Claudia gave this crucial prop to her main world's self. Afterwards, she opened the time travel sphere to go back to the parallel world, leaving the main world's Claudia alone to contemplate everything. The scene then shifts to the parallel world. Now, with only a day remaining until the end of this world, the parallel Charlotte is still in the dark about this secret. She is investigating the missing persons case of Eric. In addition to requesting the staff roster for the day of Eric's disappearance from the plant director, she has also acquired the work schedule of old Helga from 1986, when Mads went missing. Alec hands over all this information to Charlotte, even though Hannah had previously threatened Alec to ruin Charlotte. A plastic bag sits on Alec's desk as a constant reminder. He is still hesitating, unsure whether or not to implicate a woman that has no connection to him for the sake of the past. Charlotte pays no attention to Alec's predicament. She discovers that on the day of Mads's disappearance in 1986, Helga didn't have an alibi. This implies that if Helga confesses, he might indeed be responsible for Mads's death. Charlotte then goes to Peter, who definitely stands by his father. He too is unaware of the events of 1986. However, when Mads's body appeared a few nights ago, Helga was with his son and granddaughter, and certainly didn't have the time to commit any crime. Charlotte directly suggests that Helga might be the murderer, and then leaves. This impulsive behavior leaves Peter disgruntled, and the information shared leaves his young daughter utterly shocked. Over at Jonas's place, he spends the night with Martha, but his dreams are still filled with the deceased main world. Martha has developed feelings for Jonas but doesn't say much. The two of them walk downstairs together where Kathy is sitting, waiting for her daughter. Martha was not at home all day yesterday, which made her mother worried. Now, seeing her daughter safe and sound but followed by a boy, she has to ask a few more questions. Martha doesn't tell her mother about the impending end of the world, she just cries and hugs her. She believes that as long as she and Jonas do what's right, everyone will survive. Martha and Jonas slipped to the outside of the nuclear plant's wire fence. Based on the timeline of the main world, Jonas conjectured that nuclear waste barrels would be transported here today. Their mission was to prevent these barrels from being opened. Jonas cut the wire fence and crawled through, but the wire scratched a wound on Martha's cheek. Seeing this, he was reminded of the dark Martha who had brought him into the parallel world, and he realized that they were not preventing the end of the world, but merely repeating the course of destiny. Eve's proposed solution might be pushing them to trigger the end of the world and reenact everything. Everything he had been doing was what adult Jonas, Adam, or even Claudia commanded him to do. He thought following their instructions would bring change, but the outcomes kept revealing that things were only getting worse. Now, even Eve was using them as pawns. He had to find Eve and get some answers. Martha couldn't prevent the waste barrels from being opened on her own. She followed Jonas towards the Winden Cave. The middle-aged Martha once said that only one of the two worlds could be saved. Martha suddenly wanted to know which one Jonas would choose, or which version of her from the two worlds he would choose. Jonas couldn't answer this question. His initial motive to change was to save Martha from the main world. However, his experiences with Martha from the parallel world had also touched his heart. He was beginning to lose track of the two girls, who were identical from two different worlds. Martha from the parallel world hoped that Jonas could stay here with her. However, he could only say that he didn't belong to this world, and staying here was a mistake. Faced with Martha's smelly kiss, he was at a loss for words. Without further hesitation, they walked into Eve's base. This was the first time Martha had come to this place. Looking at the portraits of Adam and Eve on the wall, Jonas told her this was her future. Eve was not surprised at their arrival as she had experienced it all before. Jonas questioned Eve about her deception. However, Eve calmly responded with something Adam once said: "A person dies 3 times in life. The first is the loss of innocence, the second is the loss of purity, and the third is the loss of life." She then told Jonas that his life would end here. Both Jonas and Martha were shocked by this revelation. The middle-aged Martha and another younger version of her appeared. The young Martha had an additional scar on her face. She walked up to them, tearfully apologized to her past self, and promptly shot Jonas. Martha glared at her 3 future selves with hatred. Before he died, Jonas gave Martha his St. Christopher necklace. He no longer had to choose. He could admit that he was in love with 2 girls, 2 identical girls. Here, the St. Christopher necklace had fulfilled its cycle. Officer Egon from the main world bought it for his lover, Hannah. Hannah left it to Kathy's mother. When Kathy's mother killed middle-aged Kathy, the necklace fell by the river and was buried. 33 years later, Jonas found it and gave it to Martha as a token of their love. After her death, it became his keepsake and stayed with him until he gave it to Martha from the parallel world before his own death, acknowledging his feelings for her. It seems that Eve only used Jonas as a tool, which could give birth to Hairlip Man and serve as the motivation for Martha to become her future self, Eve. Adult Jonas from the main world once said he had never been to the parallel world. So what was happening with the current Jonas? Could there be another version of Jonas who would grow into adult Jonas and even Adam? In the previous episode, the Dark Martha learned she was pregnant. However, it was clear that Adam had control over her and wanted to kill the unborn child, who was the link between the 2 worlds. Was the newly appeared scar-faced Martha able to escape from Adam? Jonas was killed in the parallel world. In the empty base, only his body and Martha remained. Looking at her lover who had already passed away, she was in a state of confusion. Jonas once said that preventing the end of the world could rectify everything. Now, Martha had the same idea. She wanted to save everyone she loved and who loved her. Today was the end of the parallel world. Martha walked home in a daze. Looking at the blood all over her hands and body, she finally came to her senses. She washed off the blood and took off her coat. Magnus asked about her situation. She couldn't help but hug her brother and tell him about the end of the world. Although he cared about Martha, this news was beyond his understanding. He thought his sister was confused and simply appeased her before leaving. Looking at herself in the mirror, Martha couldn't wash off the smell of blood on her hair. Angry, she picked up a pair of scissors and cut her hair short. This is how her appearance gradually transformed into the Dark Martha. Her brother's reaction made Martha understand that she couldn't involve her family. She truly had to prevent the end of the world by herself. Her confidence wasn't strong, so she could only ask her mother Kathy for advice. Kathy believed they hold their lives in their own hands. It's up to them to decide which path to take. Her mother's words inspired her. She gave her mother a hug and left home resolutely. The first thing for her to do now is to prevent the waste barrels in the nuclear power plant from being opened. Alone, she can't access the plant, so she thinks of seeking help from Bartosz, whose father is the plant director, Alec. Bartosz has always been a supporter of the end-of-the-world theory. Martha informs him about the situation without any reservations. Trusting his friend, he decides to help her and calls his father in an attempt to stop him from opening the nuclear waste barrels. However, Alec doesn't answer his phone. It turns out that due to Hannah's previous threats, Alec has been hesitating about whether or not to frame Charlotte and pile another sin onto his past mistakes. Before making a final decision, he confesses to his son, saying that he had killed someone out of self-preservation years ago and has been using the deceased's identity. The innocent Bartosz is unable to accept his father's words. This makes Alec realize that even if he were to confess and seek redemption for his past now, he won't receive forgiveness from others. However, he's still uncertain about ruining Charlotte's reputation and preserving his own secret, as Hannah suggested. He decides to leave the choice to Charlotte. When his son calls him, Alec doesn't answer. Looking at the face of his deceased wife, he dials Charlotte's number. Officer Charlotte has been working tirelessly on Mad's case. Back at the police station, the test results for the 2 pennies have come out. Since Nielsen is not there, Charlotte can only go to his house. Hannah watches Charlotte closely, subtly asserting her position as the woman of the house. With his wife and lover in the same room, Nielsen is quite flustered. But after Hannah leaves, Nielsen warns Charlotte not to come to his house without notice. Charlotte is somewhat speechless. She came here for him not out of love, but purely for official business. The test results show that the 2 coins are identical in terms of texture and detail, indicating they are in fact the same coin. Nielsen returned to the police station with the coin, confirming that the time of Mads's death was probably shortly before his body was found. This made Nielsen skeptical about the theory of time travel. He stormed into the detention room to interrogate Helga. Helge's dementia was intermittent, and he only mentioned a woman who insisted that he must send Mad's body to the future to fill a gap. Nielsen pulled out the coin, and upon seeing it, Helga couldn't help but mumble about someone wanting to stop him. Under Nielsen's questioning, Helga revealed that the one was in fact Nielsen himself. Seeing Helga's confusion, Nielsen let him out of the station and secretly followed him into the Winden Cave, where he found the red line that travels through time. At this moment, Charlotte had arrived at the nuclear power plant. Alec led her, dressed in protective gear, into the warehouse storing nuclear waste. Whether Charlotte would report or become complicit was up to her to decide. At the same time, the young Martha, who had killed Jonas, arrived at the future base with the middle-aged Martha. She was heartbroken about killing her lover. The middle-aged Martha comforted her that Jonas had to die. The base was desolate at this time, and the portraits of Adam and Eve on the wall had been burned. To guide Jonas in the main world, the young Martha wrote that enlightening letter. However, she didn't understand why Jonas in the main world still existed after she had killed Jonas in this parallel world. Eve drew an infinity symbol and explained that at the intersection of the time loops of the 2 worlds, a fork would appear in the direction of things. Either the Dark Martha would arrive and take Jonas to the parallel world with the time-traveling sphere, leading to this death, or the Dark Martha would not arrive, and the Jonas in the main world would hide in his basement, avoid the end of the world, and grow into the adult Jonas. These 2 possible destinies keep overlapping in the cycle, triggering each other to form quantum entanglement, resulting in the interweaving of the fates of the 2 worlds that cannot be cut off. In layman's terms, all situations can be regarded as Schrodinger's cat in the box. Before it arrives, there are 2 situations. Adam spent many years trying to cut off this entanglement so that Hairlip Man connecting the 2 worlds would not become reality. But in Eve's view, this is impossible. Eve wanted Hairlip Man to survive, so she from the parallel world had to guide Jonas in the main world to grow up and eventually become Adam. The adult Jonas, who had not experienced the parallel world, let alone Adam, wouldn't know that this letter was not from the Martha of the main world, but part of Eve of the parallel world's plan. As Eve said, Jonas, who wasn't taken away by the Dark Martha, hid in his log cabin basement to survive the end of the world. The middle-aged Claudia of the main world, having lost her daughter, placed her hopes on the God particle after being enlightened by Claudia of the parallel world. So she secretly snuck into the nuclear power plant and saw the God particle enveloped in white light. Jonas followed closely behind, which made her more certain that Claudia of the parallel world wasn't lying. The key to the two worlds and her chance to save her daughter Regina was Jonas, who survived safely even without hiding in the bunker. Now in Winden, the time travel passage in the cave has been destroyed. They lost the way back to the past. All they had was a broken time machine and the God particle wrapped in white light. To save everyone, it meant that they had to follow the path that adult Jonas once walked. Jonas didn't want this because it meant going the old way and spending many years. But the temptation to save Mikkel and Martha was in front of him, and the lives of all friends and relatives in Winden town were hanging by a thread. Even if he resisted, Jonas had to cooperate with Claudia and find a way to restart the Winden cave passage. Regardless of Eve's plan or Jonas's dilemma, Martha in the parallel world is still unaware of it all at this point. Alec is not answering calls, so Bartos can only rush her to the nuclear power plant. On their way, they are intercepted by Magnus and Franziska from the main world. They came on Adam's orders to inform Martha that Eve had deceived her. Eve's goal was not to save the world at all. Only by following Adam could they save Jonas. The first step is to rescue Jonas from the apocalypse in the main world and transport him to the parallel world. Hearing that this could save Jonas, Martha decides to follow the old Magnus and Franziska. She also wants to bring Bartos with her, but the old Franziska says that Bartos from the parallel world is not their comrade. He will eventually join Eve's camp, and his safety will be ensured by Eve. Therefore, there is no need to worry about him. Meanwhile, Eve's deep voice reverberated, standing before the writhing God particle. She began to distribute tasks to her camp, guiding the next steps of everyone in this cycle of fate. The middle-aged Bartos in the parallel world must save his young self, left by the roadside before the apocalypse. The middle-aged Claudia must guide Martha to become Eve, spying on Adam's activities. Old Egon must save Hannah, therefore creating the fate of young Egon. Both the middle-aged Noah and young Noah must take Elizabeth before the apocalypse, giving her love and care. It turns out the previous incidents were arranged by Eve from the other world. After saying this, Eve rotated the control of the God particle, and the switch came to a stable position. Simultaneously, main world, Adam locked Dark Martha under the writhing God particle. Previously, Adam told Dark Martha that the child she was carrying, conceived with Jonas, was the origin of the eternal cycle of both worlds. Scarred Woman locked Dark Martha in a cage. After Old Tannhouse's death, Adam inherited the Sic Mundus organization. Old Tannhouse believed he could create a new paradise where no one would be at the mercy of fate, and there would be no pain. Having experienced all sorts of pain, Adam realized such a paradise doesn't exist. The real paradise should be eternal darkness, where nothing exists. To create such a paradise, the apocalypse of both worlds must occur. Scarred Woman was one of the informed parties in Adam's plan, and was chosen to fill the gap, ensuring the smooth development of fate. Whether Jonas or Martha, both would grow into their current forms. Within the organization, only Adam and Dark Martha remained. Everyone else had been sent away to reach their predestined fates at various points in time, perpetuating the world's cycle and ensuring Adam could get to this point. The child in Dark Martha's belly couldn't be killed in a conventional way. Therefore, to get rid of the origin of this world's entanglement, the energy produced at the end of the worlds must be utilized. The God particle machine that Adam controlled could not only cross time but also space. It could concentrate the energy of the end of both worlds at one point. He was sorry to hurt Dark Martha, but this was the only way he could think of to completely end all cycles. Adam pulled off the St. Christopher necklace, a symbol of the love between Jonas and Martha, and a representation of their wrong union. He had let go. Amidst the helpless cries of Dark Martha, Adam finally pulled the switch controlling the God particle. However, what he didn't know was that Hairlip Man, in his 3 age stages, acted independently, infiltrating the nuclear power plants of both the main world and parallel world. just before the apocalypse. At the very moment when Charlotte opened the nuclear waste barrel, he pressed the operation button at the power plant. The power of the apocalypse from both worlds converged, and the God particle swirled wildly, enveloping the Dark Martha. As the nuclear index rose, a large black sphere gathered in the sky, just like the end of the main world. The apocalypse of the parallel world also began to descend, and darkness swallowed the entire town of Winden. In this episode, both Adam and Eve reveal crucial information. They are orchestrating their own people to traverse time and space to fill the gaps of destiny. Scarred Woman, Noah, and Agnes all seem to play important roles. Eve explicitly states that old Claudia should protect Hannah, ensuring the continuation of the family tree. Based on previous plots in the main world, Hannah leaves after carrying Egon's child, suggesting the child's existence is crucial. According to the plots, the situation of two versions of Jonas and Martha can be considered as the manifestation of Schrödinger's cat in the macroscopic universe. For example, Jonas number 1 was sent to the parallel world by Dark Martha during the main world's apocalypse, where he met and had a relationship with the innocent Martha. Their liaison resulted in the birth of Hairlip Man. Afterward, he was killed. To put it simply, Jonas number 1 is a seed-sowing tool who completes his task and then takes his leave. Following him is Jonas number 2. During the main world's apocalypse, he survived by hiding in his basement when the Dark Martha was absent. He then collaborated with the middle-aged Claudia, grew slowly into adult Jonas, and finally became Adam. Jonas number 2 never went to the parallel world, so before he transformed into adult Jonas, he had never seen Martha number 1. After being deceived by Martha number 1 in year 1888, adult Jonas realized the persuasive letter was a ruse and burned it. But soon after, middle-aged Martha, dispatched by Eve, secretly delivered a newly written letter. This time, adult Jonas didn't burn it, but kept it until he became Adam. Then, young Noah passed it on to the adult Jonas of the next cycle. This is also the case in Martha. Martha number 1 aligns with Adam's camp. She took Jonas number 1 to the parallel world and handed the God particle to adult Jonas in 1888. After completing all this, she was discarded by Adam, who exploited the power of the apocalypse in both worlds, intending to kill her and the origin child within her. It can be speculated that Martha number 1 likely dies within the God particle cloud, much like Jonas number 1 becoming casualties in the war between Adam and Eve of both worlds. There's also a branching point, which likely revolves around whether or not she takes Jonas into the parallel world. If she does, she becomes Martha number 1. If not, she becomes Martha number 2. Martha number 2 gives birth to Hairlip Man, grows into middle-aged Martha, and ultimately becomes Eve. So the young Martha who shot Jonas number 1 at the base is likely Martha number 2. Martha number 1 enters the cabin and takes Jonas number 1 away. In the end, both of them lost their lives. Before Martha number 2 enters the cabin, she is stopped by Bartosz from the parallel world who followed her. He persuades Martha number 2 not to trust Adam, arguing that the end of the world is all Adam's doing. He suggests that she should follow him to see the real origin of the world and find another way to save people. Before the black circle of the end of the world envelops everything, Martha number 2 follows Bartosz back to the base of the parallel world. The place is a charred wasteland. She becomes somewhat infuriated and desperate. Jonas was killed right here, and Eve and others are her enemies. Does she still have to ask them for help? Eve doesn't care about these accusations. She once stood in Martha's shoes, glaring at the previous generation Eve with hatred. As she aged and gained experience, it only took 66 years for her to become Eve and begin guiding her younger self. Eve draws a knife and slashes Martha's face, wanting her to always remember which side she truly belongs to. Choosing Eve is choosing life, while choosing Adam is choosing death. She doesn't care about Martha's hatred towards her because she believes that Martha will eventually become her. Adam plans to eliminate the origin of both worlds, the child in Martha's womb, and destroy both worlds. How did he step by step come to this point? Let's explore this together in the cycle of the main world's development. In 1890, adult Jonas and others have been trapped in this time and space for 2 years. He continues to study the God particle left by Martha number 1, trying to make it into a complete sphere. However, each time he approaches success, it falls short and he suffers significant injuries. Adult Jonas knows about Jonas's past and Adam's future. Therefore, no matter how many times he fails, he never thinks of giving up. Bartosz only half understands these matters, but that doesn't prevent him from seeing through adult Jonas's intentions. Over these 2 years, adult Jonas's public stance has been about opening the passage and saving the world from doomsday. But Bartosz knows that he has a bigger goal: to find the origin of the world and destroy it, whether for salvation or destruction. The long 2 years have worn away all the patience of Bartosz. What he wants is simply to return to the time and space where he should be, not this place without his family. Angrily, he leaves the Tannhaus factory and walks alone in the rain in the jungle, where he accidentally meets Scarred Woman. Obeying Adam's orders, Scarred Woman has returned to this era, hiding her protective gear and waiting for Bartosz to pass by. He doesn't know about Scarred Woman's background and just thinks she's a shy and adorable town girl. He quickly develops feelings for her. By 1904, Bartosz and Scarred Woman have married, and they welcome their first child. Scarred Woman names him Hanno, a name that sounds familiar to Bartosz, but he doesn't fully understand its significance yet. 6 years later, Scarred Woman dies from complications after giving birth to a daughter. Bartosz doesn't even get a chance to see her one last time. Before her death, Scarred Woman names their daughter Agnes. It's only then that Bartosz realizes that Hanno is Noah, and he's the father of Noah and his sister. Unexpectedly, he has become part of the Winden cycle. In 1911, Bartosz has resigned himself to his fate, working alongside adult Jonas at the Tannhaus factory. However, they receive unexpected visitors one night, Hannah and her daughter. Upon seeing the young girl's distinctive face, Bartosz exclaims that her daughter is the Scarred Woman. Hannah was guided by Eve to find her son, adult Jonas. After years of studying the God particle and suffering injuries, adult Jonas's face and body have been disfigured, slowly taking on the appearance of Adam. Hannah is heartbroken at the sight of her son, but he coldly avoids her, only allowing her and Scarred Woman to settle in. Adult Jonas's transformation isn't just physical. His thoughts and actions have changed too. The young Scarred Woman doesn't belong to this time and space and shouldn't grow up alongside Hannah. So adult Jonas suffocates his mother Hannah in a ruthless act and takes the clueless Scarred Woman to raise. She's an essential part of the cycle of fate, and adult Jonas can't tolerate anyone disrupting it. In 2021, young Noah, accompanied by Elizabeth, digs open the collapsed time travel passage but can't open it. After losing all his relatives, the belief that supports Elizabeth's survival is the new paradise described by Noah. There's no pain or torment there. All the dead are alive. Of course, this is also the concept instilled by Adam. By 2023, Jonas and Claudia have spent 2 years trying but failing to pierce the protective barrier of the God particle. Jonas gradually loses hope. He returns to the cabin, which has long been uninhabited and is filled with dust. He walks into the room where his father Mikkel took his own life and contemplates his father's feelings at that moment. He puts his neck into the noose, but just as his life is about to end, Noah suddenly appears to save him. Jonas can't die yet. Adam once made a promise to Noah that he will certainly cause doomsday to happen, create a new paradise, and save everyone. So there's no room for Jonas to give up on life at this time. Moreover, the existence of adult Jonas and Adam implies the existence of the future, so no matter what Jonas tries, even if he points a gun at his head and pulls the trigger, the bullet will certainly jam. Destiny won't allow Jonas to die now. Noah takes Jonas to see the collapsed travel passage, encouraging him to live with hope. The passage will certainly reconnect time again. Adam once told Noah that he and Jonas would become good friends, but there would be a time when Jonas betrays Noah. At least for now, the two can coexist peacefully. In the year 2040, after 17 years, Noah has grown into a middle-aged man, and Jonas has also matured into adult Jonas. However, the God particle is still trapped within the barrier, unable to break through. One day, strong magnetism finally pierces the barrier. The three of them are glad to see that, but they soon realize that the God particle remains an uncontrollable entity, incapable of reaching a stable state for time travel. Claudia has been by their side all along, but she always acts independently, sometimes even disappearing for several days. Her mysterious behavior makes Noah distrust her. However, just as Noah trusts Adam, adult Jonas also trusts Claudia. He believes in her because he doesn't want to repeat Adam's mistakes, and believes he will not become Adam. Noah wants to argue with adult Jonas, but the pregnant middle-aged Elizabeth called him back. Noah can only warn adult Jonas not to fully trust Claudia. She's definitely hiding something. In fact, Claudia is indeed keeping secrets. She has been secretly communicating with Claudia from the parallel world, following Eve's arrangements. She hasn't leaked any details about the parallel world, and it's revealed that the God particle being unable to achieve stability is due to her secret manipulations, because Eve believes it's not yet time for the God particle to come into effect. After all these years, Claudia in the main world has her own ideas. She has met the old Claudia and was told that if everything goes well, her daughter Regina will survive. However, in the parallel world, Regina has long since died of illness. Regional in the main world survived the apocalypse, but she is constantly tormented by illness. Plus, Claudia from the parallel world has never seen her old self. This makes Claudia from the main world believe that Adam and Eve are both wrong. There must be a third path they don't know about that can allow Regina to truly survive. In order to explore the secrets of the two worlds, Claudia from the main world kills Claudia from the parallel world, impersonates her, and travels between the two worlds, gathering information to perfect her own plan. A year later, Elizabeth gave birth to a daughter named Charlotte. With a child to care for, her heart became even softer, contrasting starkly with her former ruthless decisiveness when facing an uncertain future. She increasingly yearned for the paradise that Noah described, desiring a carefree life for her daughter. Noah patiently painted a picture of this beautiful scene for his wife time and time again, truly giving Elizabeth his undivided love. While the couple was tidying up outside, the middle-aged Elizabeth and Charlotte arrived during this timeline and secretly took away baby Charlotte. Although it was heartbreaking, they knew it was something they had to do. When Noah and his wife returned home, they found the crib empty. Noah then believed that adult Jonas had betrayed him, allowing Claudia to steal their daughter. Adult Jonas denied this, but did not reveal Charlotte's whereabouts. Noah could only curse adult Jonas, wishing him all the misery in the world. Elizabeth's spirit was on the verge of collapse. Noah assured her that he would find their daughter and return. Before leaving, he took the brown notebook with him. After a long journey through time and countless searches, Noah still could not find his daughter. He traveled to the Winden town in 1920 and sought out Adam at the Sic Mundus organization. Now, only Adam could help him. Adam did not admit to kidnapping baby Charlotte. The truth was that it was not him who acted, but his future self who orchestrated everything from behind the scenes. However, Noah was right about one thing. Claudia could not be trusted. Now, these people had become two factions pursuing their respective purposes. Noah still carried the brown notebook with him. Adam stated that as long as the final missing pages were found, they could find his daughter and reach the real paradise. He then sent Noah to the 80s to guide Helga and complete the time travel experiment. In 2052, the old Claudia had completed the character map in the bunker. Adult Jonas trusted her completely. Under her guidance, he was about to set off on the predetermined route. While guiding Jonas to his set path, they would find the clockmaker, fix the time travel machine, destroy the portal, and save everyone. Once Jonas had left, the old Claudia took out the brown notebook, tore off the last few pages, and hid them. Regardless of what Adam and Eve's plans were, she only wanted her daughter to live a good life. The scene then shifts to flashbacks explaining how the story was developed. Adult Jonas guiding his younger self into Winden's cave, the old Claudia guiding her middle-aged self to understand the mechanism of time travel. Noah finding Bartos and killing the old Claudia to obtain the last few pages of the brown notebook, only to be killed by his sister Agnes. Young Noah, completely unaware of what had happened, went to the main world's apocalypse in 2020. Adult Jonas brought everyone to travel through time, only to get trapped in 1888. Jonas watched helplessly as Martha was killed by Adam. As the black fog of the apocalypse arrived, Jonas hid in the basement. Martha number 2 did not enter the house, and instead returned to Eve's side with the parallel world's Bartos. Everything happened as planned. Adam finally reached the last step he desired. He pressed the switch to control the God particle. Martha number 1 disappeared into the God particle. Adam closed his eyes, waiting for the world to end and darkness to descend. However, nothing happened. It seemed as if everything he had done was a joke. The old Claudia suddenly appeared beside Adam. This episode essentially lays out the foreshadowing of the plot from the first 2 seasons. All destinies are cyclical. Most importantly, the family tree representing the paradox within Winden Town is clearly displayed. Let's sort this out. Scarred Woman and Bartos gave birth to Noah and Agnes. Noah and Elizabeth had Charlotte. Charlotte gave birth to Elizabeth and Franziska. This loop is relatively simple. Agnes and Hairlip Man gave birth to Nielsen's dad. Nielsen has 3 children, Magnus, Martha, and Mikkel. Mikkel travels through time to have Jonas with Hannah. Hannah travels through time with Officer Egon to have Scarred Woman. Adult Jonas and parallel worlds Martha gave birth to Hairlip Man. In these loops, apart from Hannah and Bartosz, everyone else is a product of the paradox. In other words, without time travel, these people would not be born. It can be said that the main characters of Town are all within the cycle of time travel. Now, Adam has killed Martha #1 and did not achieve the desired destruction and relief. This indicates that the origin of the two worlds might not be, or not just the existence of Hairlip Man. This episode also describes the past of the clockmaker. In 1974, he assembled a machine in his shop with a picture of his son's family in front of him. However, they all died in a car accident 3 years ago. The clockmaker was heartbroken and often wished time could reverse death. He requisitioned the bunker and began to study time travel, spending 12 years from middle age to old age, assembling a gigantic machine that might travel through time and keep his son's family alive. In 1986, the old clockmaker pressed the start button, and this huge machine began to operate. After the death of his son's family, middle-aged Charlotte and Elizabeth sent baby Charlotte to the clockmaker, who adopted her. Jonas's lifelong fear and unease began with his father Mikkel ending his own life by hanging. He started having recurring nightmares with the terror of life never ending. As more and more of his friends and family get involved, even his beloved Martha dies. He eventually becomes Adam, wanting to destroy both worlds to make all the pain and sorrow disappear. However, fate plays a cruel joke on him. Despite his efforts, the origin of both worlds, the child in Martha's womb, remains unchanged even after Adam pressed the switch to control the God particle. The old Claudia then appears, saying she's there to end his journey. Adam, seeing the living Claudia, is taken aback. He had already sent people to kill Claudia. The old Claudia looks at him with pity in her eyes. Adam still hasn't fully understood the rules of this game. What he thought was the origin was just an illusion. The existence of the parallel world and the main world is a mistake. Their origin lies outside the two worlds. The earliest Celtic triangle has already hinted that everything is a trinity. Above the main and parallel worlds, there is a third world, the origin of all worlds. After losing all his family in the origin world, the clockmaker tries to bring the dead back to life. He assembles a massive time travel machine in the bunker, but in doing so, he destroys his world, splitting it into the main world and the parallel world. To truly break free from the entanglement of the two worlds and liberate everyone from the cycle of pain, a breakthrough within the two worlds only is not possible. The only way is to go to the origin world and stop the invention of time travel. To reach this point, Claudia has to let Adam and Eve go through everything until this moment. All the struggles that Adam and Eve have made are just to create new versions of themselves, to make the entanglement of the two worlds tighter. It's like when Eve tells Martha that she is pregnant. Seeing the 3 age stages of Hairlip Man before her, she feels the warmth and embrace of her own flesh and blood, and her maternal instinct is triggered. She wants her son to live well. Because of this, she believes Eve's words, puts on the prepared clothes, faces her past self with a gun in hand, and kills Jonas. Adam destroys all the thought-to-be origins, a cycle that has happened countless times, but now Claudia stands in front of him, declaring all his efforts were in vain. The old Claudia wants to find a way to save her daughter Regina. She spends 33 years in the worlds of Adam and Eve searching for answers. She pieces together all the fragments, understanding the family tree of Town, and realizes that the two worlds are just part of a whole connection. They are just incomplete and ugly offshoots grown from the origin world. Only by cutting them off can everything that already exists in the origin world survive, just like Regina. Regina's biological father has always been a mystery. Nielsen's dad has always thought of her as his daughter. Based on the family tree, Nielsen's dad is a product of a paradox. Therefore, if Regina is Nielsen's dad's child, she would cease to exist if the two worlds were destroyed. But now, Claudia is relieved that Regina is not Nielsen's dad's daughter. This allows Claudia to confidently initiate the disappearance of the main world and the parallel world, letting her daughter truly live in the origin world. To achieve this purpose, Claudia deceives Adam and Eve, making them only see the two worlds in front of them, letting all the stories happen over and over again according to the cycle. Just like both versions of Nielsen's dad from the two worlds have returned to the past. One tried to kill young Helga and eventually died in a mental asylum, and the other tried to kill middle-aged Helga, but was killed by senile old Helga instead. Amidst these repetitive observations, Claudia understands the rules of how the world operates and the chain of cause and effect. She finds a way to unravel the connection of the three worlds. At the end of the world, time once stood still for a moment, making everything lose its balance. At the same time, the chain of cause and effect would temporarily break. Eve exploited this loophole to create Martha number 1 and 2, who perpetuated the cycle of the two worlds, ensuring the survival of her son, the hair-lip man. Claudia also utilized this loophole to create different versions of herself and peek into the secrets of these worlds. Claudia hands the time travel sphere to Adam. Now it's his turn to use this loophole and send Jonas on a path different from that of Martha number 1 and 2, thereby completely breaking this world cycle. Jonas and Martha are key to the cycle of the two worlds. Adam must find a way to send them to the origin world to end everything. After explaining all of this, the old Claudia sends Adam away. She then reveals the secret to unraveling the world to her middle-aged self, ensuring she could become the person she is now. Afterwards, she heads towards her long, predetermined fate, returns to the past to bid farewell to her young father Egon, and meets her conclusion of being killed by Noah. On June 27, 2020, in the moment the main world stood still on Doomsday, Adam returned to the cabin, taking Jonas to the parallel world. On Doomsday, Adam simply explained the cause and effect to him. All these years, whether it was Adam or Eve, they were causing trouble in their own worlds, thinking they could achieve the desired results by their own power alone. It wasn't until being enlightened by Claudia that Adam understood that Jonas and Martha are one and the same. Both of them must unite to return to the origin world. Now Jonas doesn't have much time left. He must hurry before old Magnus and Franziska from the main world take Martha away to reenact the cycle and bring her to the origin world. At this time, Bartos from the parallel world is rushing to the nuclear power plant with Martha. Jonas is running wildly in the forest, just in time to see the old Magnus and Franziska blocking Martha. He opens the time travel sphere, and to everyone's surprise, he rushes toward Martha, bringing her to the origin world. On June 21, 1986, the clockmaker will open the time travel passage for the first time today, hence the birth of the main world and the parallel world. After sending away Jonas, Adam comes to Eve's base with a gun and completely burns it down. It turns out that he was the one who destroyed Eve's base. However, the main camp of Sigmundus was burned down by Hairlip Man. Roughly speaking, this old couple was sabotaging each other. Afterwards, Adam flicks the switch of the God particle at Eve's base, calming it down. This provides energy for what Jonas and Martha are about to do. Adam travels back to the future of the parallel world, where Eve is already waiting for him. He quietly slips their love token, the St. Christopher necklace, into his pocket. This scene has been repeated countless times in the cycle. Adam, who failed to destroy the origin, is furious and comes to the parallel world to kill Eve, triggering Martha's hatred and growing into the next Eve. But this time, there isn't a single bullet in the gun Adam brought. He has already stepped out of the cycle, just waiting for Jonas and Martha to end it all. Now he is advising Eve, hoping she can let go of her obsession and accept the ending that can be changed, their impending disappearance. Hidden within the depths of the Winden Cave lies the future of two worlds. Jonas and Martha are the source of these two worlds. Only if the two of them never existed, the cycles of the two worlds and the tragedy can disappear. They slowly crawl into the passage, the end of which is a stone wall yet to be broken through. In the origin world, the clockmaker's son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter died in a car accident, hit on a rainy night, and drowned in the river after falling from a bridge. He has never been able to forget the pain of losing all his family members. Now, Jonas and Martha must take away his pain, so that the clockmaker will not research time travel and try to reverse everything, thus truly preventing the birth of the two worlds. Jonas explains everything to Martha. Both of them have just experienced the death of their loved ones, yet they see love and tears in each other's faces. At this moment, the old clockmaker activates the machine. 3 streams of time particles spin and merge in a beam of light, opening the time passage right before their eyes. Jonas and Martha open their eyes with only each other and time particles flowing around them. Endless passages stretch out in front and behind them. They shout each other's names, walking in one direction, yet at the end, they both see the other as a child. The little Martha of the parallel world sees Jonas in the wardrobe. The little Jonas of the main world sees Martha in the basement door. These are their childhood experiences. As children, they thought it was merely an illusion or a beautiful dream, unaware that it was evidence of their entwined fate. The scene at the end implies that it's not the correct direction. The two keep retreating until they meet at the intersection of the two passages. There exists a third path leading to the origin world. Jonas turns the time travel sphere. They must prevent the source of the tragedy, the car accident. In the origin world, the middle-aged clockmaker is arguing with his son. To be precise, it's the son accusing his father of being heartless and indifferent. The clockmaker, who lost his wife early and is obsessed with the universe and celestial bodies, loves his son deep down. However, he is awkward in expressing his love and doesn't understand his son's thoughts well, resulting in complaints and estrangement between father and son. The son, who rarely brings his wife and daughter to visit, quarrels over whether to inherit the clock shop. In a fit of anger, the son leaves with his wife and daughter regardless of the rain. The wife attempts to persuade her husband to calm down since they're family after all. Halfway through their drive, Jonas and Martha suddenly appear in the middle of the road, startling the son, who brakes just in time to avert an accident. Jonas and Martha tell the clockmaker's son that the bridge leading out of Winden Town is blocked, and his father loves him very much. They urge him to return home and not to leave on a rainy night. Seeing the man and woman who suddenly appeared before him, the clockmaker's son instinctively chooses to comply, returning to his father's house with his wife and daughter. The clockmaker is overjoyed, hugging his son. He also has a feeling that the important people in his life have returned, and the photo on his workbench will not become a memorial. The rain stops, and the tragedy in the origin world has been prevented. Jonas and Martha, who have been through countless cycles, seem to coincide at this moment and are about to disappear in the next because the origin world has been changed. They start to transform into particles. Jonas turns to Martha and utters the vow that they firmly believe in, that they are the perfect match and never believe in anything else. Jonas takes Martha's hand and disappears in Winden Town. Adam and Eve, adult Jonas, middle-aged Martha, and Claudia, who predicted everything, all disappear contentedly into particles. They know that their goal to end the pain has truly been achieved. Everything is so peaceful in Winden Town of the origin world. Regina, Hannah, Kathy, Peter, the cross-dresser, and the one-eyed man, who are not within the family tree paradox, have all survived and are dining together. The one-eyed man and Hannah are a couple, and Hannah is pregnant. Suddenly, a thunderclap startles them, and the lights dim. Hannah looks at the yellow raincoat on the porch chair and feels a sense of déjà vu. It's as if the doomsday has arrived somewhere, but it brings a sense of peace in the end. Everyone doesn't think much of it and continues toasting in celebration. The power is restored, and in the brightness, Hannah names her unborn child Jonas. Let's recap the general plot across 3 seasons. In the origin world, the clockmaker lost all of his loved ones, and to save them, he created a time travel machine. However, this destroyed the origin world and created the main world and the parallel world where the paradoxes kept repeating. Due to the existence of time travel, Jonas in the main world repeatedly evolves into adult Jonas and Adam, who experience the end of the world. During this time, Jonas splits into Jonas number 1 and number 2, completing the connection between the two worlds. On the other side, Martha in the parallel world repeats the same cycle until Claudia, desperate to save her daughter, traverses the two worlds and discovers the destroyed origin world. If she prevents the origin world from being destroyed at the beginning, her daughter can truly survive. So Claudia manipulates Adam and Eve, helping them complete the cycle until they find a way to break the cycle. That is, Jonas and Martha head to the origin world together to prevent the car accident of the clockmaker's son and daughter-in-law. Eventually, the two successfully complete the task. In the origin world, without his family's tragedy, the clockmaker does not research the time travel machine. Hence, 2 derivative worlds, the main world and parallel world, were never born. How can Claudia be sure that her daughter will definitely be able to live healthily in the origin world? However, it seems that the whole drama doesn't give any clues. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.